seen what's going on in Texas. And I felt like that even President Trump said, he asked the churches this week if they would just stop and pray for Texas, because they're going through a lot right now. Anytime a hurricane comes in and it sends massive amounts of water in to your city and into your home, that is devastation, because we actually, when we were pastoring in 2020, one of the families that was there with us is actually right now tearing their house apart in Texas. And I was looking at the pictures yesterday of their house, and they were coming every single Sunday to 2020, but his job took him to Texas, and now his house sits with about 2 feet of water in it. And I was watching pictures of them cutting out the drywall yesterday. So it's not just people in Texas, but it's everyone involved. There's people volunteering. I know today, leaving at 6 o'clock tonight, that I know personally, driving a straight truck all the way to Texas. There's many, many people. Matthew 25 Ministries, when I was telling you last week about taking all the items that I had got for Haiti, there this week, when I called them, they said, man, you're going to have to give us 1 week. You won't miss your shipment. We'll still get your stuff on there. But we have, if you came over here right now, it would take you hours to get done what we can do next week in about 20 minutes. They were sending truck after truck after truck down there to Texas. So I just want to stop as a church and just pray for them. And I just pray you join with me in prayer. Lord, we just come before you right now, God, and God, there's so many different avenues, Lord, that we could pray for. There's so many different avenues, whether it be someone that would be living in a house that had to be rescued. Someone living in a house where now they've the water is starting to back off in some areas, not all areas, but some areas. And we know that they're able to go in right now and just start the process of cleaning. And Father, I pray, God, for those families affected. God, I pray for those who lost their lives. I pray for the truck drivers that we saw on Facebook just trying to get out of their truck and boats having to go down and help them out. And Father, I pray, God, for every single volunteer. God, whether they're bringing water to a location today, or they did it last week, or the week before, or whatever's going on, Lord, whatever resources have come in, Father, there's a lot of different avenues that we could zero in on and pray for. But God, I know, God, that you know every single detail about that hurricane. God, you know every single detail about every volunteer going, about every single person that donated. God, you know every single avenue about every route they'll take to get to Texas to help out. God, you know every single avenue of every single detail going on. So God, when we come to you in prayer, Lord, we don't come to you and ask that you would just do something about, this area or this area, because God, we know you're the overseer of all areas. And God, good things happen, bad things happen to good people and bad people, God. So it's not about being a Christian. There's churches right now that are underwater down there, Father. And God, they're having to deal with that, and their congregations are having to deal with that, and the pastors are having to rally the team up and say, we're going to get through this. And God, I pray, God, as we sit here in a dry sanctuary today, that God, we don't take it for granted. That God, we don't take it for granted, God, that we can lift these people up in prayer. And God, we know that you are an advocate, Father, and you will go. Because of our prayers, because of the volunteers, because of the help that's traveling down there, Father, you will intercede, Father, in areas where you need to, Father. And God, I know that many of those people are just relying on you. They're relying on your help. They're relying on your strength, Father, because a lot of those people are just sitting around dirty, sitting in shelters, trying to figure out what they're going to do with their home, cleaning their home out, Father. So God, right now I pray that you be with them. It's in Jesus' name we pray. And everybody said, Amen. Well, as you know, we're on the third week of Flyover sermon series, where we try to take you to a destination. Last week I was preaching about heaven, because the Bible has a lot to say about that destination. And this week we're actually going to be in a place in the Bible. But I want to start out with you, and I titled my sermon, The Valley of Passion. Because I believe that once we get done with this sermon today, we're going to look at the Valley of Elah and say, that was a valley of passion. Something big happened there. And if you look at the map that we're putting up for you, I want to show you this map that I found this map on Google, but it really explains kind of what's going on. Is if you can see, this is a present day picture. You can kind of tell with the crops and the fields going on. But if you can see all the fields that's there down below in the valley, that is the Valley of Elah. And if you could see up on the left side, it says Saul's camp. And if you look all the way on the right, it says the Philistines' camp. And I just want you to have this picture in your head as we talk about what I would consider not really the valley of Elah, but I want to call it the valley of passion today. You see, there's so many people in here that some of you are living out your passions, man. Some of you are saying, I got the job that I want. I got the spouse that I want. My life's going great. I'm making what I want to make an hour. My kids are great. They're all in school. They're all doing good. They might be off married or whatever. And you're looking and you're saying, I have fulfilled and I am living out my passion. But there's some of you sitting here saying, I lost my passion. I had my passion at one time, like I was fulfilling my passion at one time. I knew what I was supposed to do, but because of circumstances unforeseen to me and what happened to me, I have physically lost my passion. And I'm not going to have you raise your hand. You know who you are. You know if you're represented. There's been times as a pastor, I have lost my passion. There has been times where I have been in burnout stage and I've had to fight through that, and I've told you all about that before, and I really don't hide anything as a pastor. I don't really mind. I don't really mind telling you my faults. Why? Because if I tell you what I'm struggling with, then I promise you're going to see me as more as someone that you can relate to. Someone that if I'm going through something, I'm just going to tell you. If I'm on a mountain, I'm going to tell you. If I'm in a valley, I'm going to tell you. And I just want to tell you that there are times that through the ministry, I have lost my passion. So if pastors can lose their passion, people can lose their passion. And it's not always a ministry that we're looking at. I'm talking about some of you have jobs that you love, that you got into, you went to school for, and then you lost. Over time, you said, I hate this job now. I really don't like this job. I've talked to teachers before that said, man, I spent so many years, going to school and learning to be a teacher, and I finally got that job. And man, when I first got the job, man, I was doing everything in my classroom, and I was doing everything to make it right in the beginning of the year, and I was so invested in these kids' life, and I wanted to talk to every parent. And then you talk to them like 10 years later, and it's not every case, because I know we got some teachers in here, but there are some times that if you talk to these teachers, they say there are some days, there are some months that I like to just grab them little kids and just wring their little necks. Why? Because they're kids and you got to deal with them, right? And it's not just teaching, it's not just preaching, it's any avenue in life we can lose our passion. And some of you are sitting in here and you're saying, hey, I would like to lose my passion just once because I've never even found my passion. I don't even know what my passion is, man. I have no idea what God has created me to do. And then some of you actually have your passion running right next to you, trying to hit you on the side of the head saying, I'm your passion, just grab me. I'm your passion. This is what you were made for. Just grab me. And sometimes we know it's there. Sometimes we know that it's running right next to us. But sometimes we're so scared of the uncertainties of what's going on that we're scared to grab our passion and run with it because it just looks too scary. So some of you have lost your passion. Some of you have your passion. Some of you don't know what your passion is. And some of you have your passion running right next to you. But I want to tell you today as we go into this sermon, there is one thing for sure that I can tell you. That David did have ups and downs. But David knew his passion, and his passion was for the Lord. His passion that he had was for God. And as you look, you still have the map up for me? So the map, if you look at the map, if you look at this little valley, there's a famous story that happened, and you'd be hard-pressed to find a children's program that hasn't taught about David and Goliath. But this week when I felt the Lord was saying, Earl, I want you to preach on David and Goliath. And I'm like, no, not David and Goliath. And I just feel like God was saying, like, me and God have like conversations like that. I just feel like I talk to Him like that. Not in an audible voice, but just Him speaking to my heart. And I'm like, no, God, I've already preached about David and Goliath probably 50 times. And God, everybody's heard this story and, how you take the giant out. And He's like, but I want you to preach it this week from just a little bit different angle. Like, I want you to preach it just from a little bit different angle. Not completely off track, but just a little bit. So I just want to share with you. So I said, okay, God. And God usually always gets His way in my life. Not always. There's times that I'm not obedient, I'm going to tell you. But this week I was. And on Monday I was talking to Randy eating lunch, and I said, I have no idea what I'm going to do. By that afternoon I had every single bit of this sermon on paper. I come in on Wednesday and talk to Josh. And I told him what I was preaching on, and he's just looking at me like, yeah, sounds really exciting. Go Tiger. And because he's preaching it too, right? And I'm like, I know, man, I know, right? And he's like, yeah, have at it. And I was like, I'm going to preach on the Valley of Elah. And he's like, all right. You know, and if you can't get Pastor Josh excited, you got to wonder, God, are you really doing something here? What is it? So anyway, on Wednesday, I told him that, and I kind of got that reaction. On Thursday, I go in, and Matt Hall's preaching to the youth after I drove the bus and got them all there. Matt gets up and sits down, and he says, I want to tell you about David and Goliath. And I'm like, he's getting ready to preach to these kids what I'm getting ready to preach on Sunday. And then I thought, well, how cool was that? Because he didn't know what I was doing. And then I said, well, that's cool. So I get off, go to, get done with that. And on Friday, I go to work, and I come up here on Friday afternoon, and I go up to the computer, and I kind of snuck in the back door because they was having an event out here. And so I'm typing all my stuff in the computer, and I get all that done, and I go home, and I sit down, and I turn on the TV, and I love watching preachers on TV. Some of you might not like that. I like that. I enjoy it. And that's not where I get my total source of feeding. Like some people will say, well, I don't need to go to church. I can just listen to T.D. Jakes. Wrong. That ain't how it works, folks. It don't work like that. But I do like listening to pastors, and one of my favorite pastors to listen to is Louis Giglio. And so I just go home and I sit down and turn on the TV, and Louis is up there saying, I want to talk to you about David and Goliath. And I'm like, this is unreal. So Linda sits down, and she's watching it with me. And then next thing you know, I got done with that, and I said, well, I need a little Stephen Furtick, right? Because I like Stephen Furtick too. And so I had like 10 different selections that I could choose from Stephen Furtick, and clicked on one. And then he starts preaching about David and Goliath. And I told Linda, I said, I'm going to go to John Gray. And I'm going to pull one up of John Gray. And I'm telling you, if he starts preaching, I'm going to run around this house. Because I know that God is doing something, and I put it on and he didn't. So I don't know. I didn't run. So, but I just want to share something with you today. Well, John Gray wasn't connected to me and Stephen Furtick and Louis Giglio and Matt Hall this week. I just want to let you know. I love John Gray. He's pretty awesome. He's funny. But this week he wasn't with it. Or maybe I didn't click on the right one. I don't know. But I want to share this story just in a different light. I don't want to read it to you, because too many times we read the story of David and we miss everything. But anyway, if you look at this map, you got the Israelites on one. That's Saul's camp. They're on one hill. And you got the Philistines, and they're on the other hill. And so what's happening is Goliath, he steps out, because this is something that usually happened back in those days, is they would just step out and say, well, just give me your best warrior you got, and we'll fight and settle this one-on-one. And that way we don't really have to kill each other all off by going to battle and see who wins. Just send your best out. So Goliath steps out there as the best that the Philistines could offer up. And I want to tell you, that's a problem, and I'll get to that in just a little bit. But Goliath was the best that the Philistines could offer up. And so he steps out, and for, this goes on. He's just ranting at the Israelite army for day after day. And the Israelites, because they see how big he is, they see the armor that he has on, and he looks like a giant. They're scared to death, and they're up on this hill, and they're just camped out like, we don't really have anybody qualified to send out that can fight this man. Because see, here's the thing, is we have to understand, is when you send your best out, you are declaring, this is the best that we have to offer. So if you defeat our best, Goliath made it real clear that whoever wins this battle really wins territory. That you will be serving us. That was going to be the capacity. So they didn't have anybody to send. And all of a sudden, this little boy just comes to deliver lunch because his dad tells him to. And he comes, and he's just delivering lunch, and he's doing everything that he should be doing. And all of a sudden, he hears the guys talking what's going on, and they're saying that Goliath's been out there for day after day, and he's just ranting and raving. But whoever kills this guy is going to get these rewards. And all of a sudden, David perked up a little bit like, hold on, what just happened? What did you just say? And even David's brothers jump in and says, what are you here for? Why ain't you out there attending just your few sheep that you have? And David's like, no, I ain't got time for that. Hold on, what did you just say the king was going to do for whoever wins this battle? And they're like, well, he's going to give you a daughter. And he's going to give you riches, and your family's never going to have to pay taxes again. Read it. Read 1 Samuel 17. This is exactly what happened. So David says this. David says, well, I'll go. No big deal. I'll go. I'll go fight him. I'll take him down. I won't just go fight him, but I'll take him down. So they take him to the king, and Saul says, well, here's the deal. If you're going to go fight him, I'm going to put my armor on you, and you're going to do this and this and this. And David says, okay, that's awesome. He puts it on, and it really don't fit him right, and he's not really agile. And so he says, no, that ain't going to work for me. And he goes out and he grabs some stones, and then he walks out in the field. And you all know the story. We teach it to all the kids. If you've never heard this story, I don't know where you've been living at, like under a rock or something. Right? I mean, we all know the story. It's not that exciting. If you don't know the story, you've never been in children's program for more than 6 or 7 months. Or you've never sat in church for more than 6 or 7 months, maybe, to hear about David and Goliath. And David does exactly what David says he's going to do. Is he goes out and he runs out there, and Goliath says, well, you got to be kidding me, right? They're sending you, and come on over here to me and whatever. And David's like, oh, I got you. I got you, big boy. And he fires a sling at him, right? And we think of going down to like the Dollar General and picking up a little slingshot. That's not what he used, folks. And he fires something and hits him right between the head. And then he tells him, he says, I'm going to chop your head off. We don't tell kids this in children's church, do we? Like David tells him, I'm going to kill you, and then I'm going to chop your head off. That's what I'm going to do. And I'm going to serve it up as a warning to every Philistine that God will get the glory and we will win. That's the real true story. And guess what he did? He did that. He shot him right between the eyeballs. Dude fell down. He didn't even have a sword. So he ran over and he grabbed Goliath's big heavy sword, chops his head off, picks it up, takes it back to Saul, and says, here you go. Now I want my reward. That's the story of David and Goliath right there in a nutshell. But this week when I was studying it, God says, no, hold up a second. You're missing some things. Because, see, I didn't write that story for the Israelites. Earl, I didn't write this story even for the Philistines. I wrote this story to show you about a valley of passion because David says something real keen in this little story. At a certain point, David says, and you need to go back and read 1 Samuel 17 to catch this, but David says, listen, for ages to come, they're going to be talking about this story. For ages to come, people are going to talk about what we did here on this valley. For ages to come, it's going to be a mark of what happened that I took down the giant. That God ultimately got the victory. Think about this for a second. And God says, Earl, you don't understand even the story of David and Goliath because there's some things that apply to your life and apply to the church's life that they need to get today. And if you'll just listen to these little 6 or 7 points I got real quick, I promise you'll look at David and Goliath's story completely different. I guarantee it. First point, here we go. What your giant can get a hold of, your giant can defeat. Think about this. Every single one of us in here, in our life, have giants in our life. You're not good enough. You're not going to be able to make it through this day. Your marriage is never going to be able to last because your moms and your grandmas and your great-grandmas, they never made it. So you're never going to have a successful marriage. Your dad walked out, so how could you not walk out? You're not going to have good kids. Your kids are going to grow up defiant. See, these are all giants in our life. You're never going to be able to hold down a job because, see, the last 5 years you've been just bouncing from job to job and you want the same job that everybody else has got, one that you can kind of retire from. You want really good pay when you're getting tired of working in this job, making this kind of money, when all your friends around you are the same age as you, and they're saying, look what God blessed me with. I got my own company truck, and I got this, and I got that, and I got a good pension, and I got a doctor's office that sits on the campus where I work, and all this stuff I've heard. It's giants. But see, you have to understand something. What your giant can get a hold of, your giant can defeat. Now I just want to read you real quick. I said I wasn't going to read it to you, but I just want to read you real quick what verse 44 says. The Philistine said to David, come to me, and I will give your flesh to the birds of the air and to the beast of the field. First off, let me tell you something about David. David had no intention, folks, of walking in there and letting Goliath get a hold of him. David wasn't that stupid. David's like, dude, you're like 18 feet tall, and I'm like a little kid. I ain't even of age, and I don't know. You have lost your mind. You want me to come to you so you can grab a hold of me and choke me out and do whatever you're going to do? David had no intentions. First off, let's just set the standard in the bar that David, being the young little boy that he was and being as fast as he was, he had no intentions on letting the giant get a hold of us. So why do we wake up every single morning? And I feel like this is God telling you this. Why do you wake up every single morning and let the thoughts and your giants in your head get a hold of you? Why? Why don't you say, no, no defeat, we're not having that today. You're not getting a hold of me with them thoughts. That's not going to fester, that's not going to grow in my mind. Why? See, our giants too often can grab a hold of us, and God is saying, listen, if you'll keep your giants at bay, if you'll just keep them at a distance, you can defeat them. You can defeat them with weapons of the Word. You can defeat them, but see, once they grab you and once they get inside your mind and they get inside your body, it's a whole different ball game. They got you. I was talking to a guy the other day, and he says, man, I was really thinking about ending my life. Have you lost your mind? He's like, well, I said, man, I'm just going down the list of what all this guy has in his life. I'm like, you have got this in your life, and this in your life, and this in your life. What are you thinking, man? Like, I just buried a guy, or just went to a funeral for a guy at 49 years old last Sunday that would have begged for one more day on this earth, and you're telling me you want to give up? Why? It's not because something he's doing. It's the giants grab you, and the giants that get in your mind can mess you up. Second thing I want to tell you, if you're looking at your giant, you are missing your strengths. If you're looking at your giant, you're missing your strengths. Can I point out something to you that I really felt like God was saying to me this week? He said, Earl, I want you to go back and read 4 to the audience. Read verse 4 of 1 Samuel 17. Even the author was giving more credit to the giant. And there came out from the camp of the Philistines. Listen, it sounds like something off of like calling it out like Rocky IV or something. A champion named Goliath of Gath, whose height was 6 cubits in span. He had a helmet of bronze on his head. He was armed with a coat of mail, and his weight of coal, listen to this, the weight of his coat was 5,000 shekels of bronze. He had a bronze armor of his legs, and a javelin of bronze slung between his shoulders. The shaft of a spear was like the weaver's beam, and listen to this, and the spear's head weighed 600 shekels of iron. And listen to this, and his shield bearer went before him. He stood and shouted to the ranks of the Israel, why have you come up to draw up battle? And God says, are you really going to give an introduction to your giants in your life? How strong they can be against you? If you're looking at your giant, you're missing your strengths. You never seen them one time in 1 Samuel 17 if you go read it. Out from the hills of the Israelites comes this little boy delivering lunch, who ain't got no armor, who ain't ever served one day in the Israelite army. All he was doing is bringing some fish and some bread for his brothers who served. He didn't do nothing but take care of sheep. Like, you don't even hear them talking about it. Like, if they did describe it, it was like just kind of downing him in a way. Think about this. If you're looking at your giants, you're forgetting what the abilities that God has gave you. David never really did look at the ability of the giant, did he? David never really came out onto the field and even took a look at him and was like, oh, what I agree to. He never did that, folks. He walked with passion out there to do something he felt like God could deliver him from. That's what he did. And if you're looking at your giants, you're missing your strength. I was telling my wife the other day, she I don't know if I should share it, but I'm going to share it anyway. I don't care. She had a little class, and to do that she's working on to be a nurse, and she was like, I went to work and I gave all my girls these things and told them to describe me, and they didn't want to do that. I was like, I don't blame them. Oh, no. Just messing with her, right? I'm like, I don't know, honey. I'm not doing that. But here's the thing. Is that one thing I told my wife? I said, most people look at you and they see you as strong. Most people look at you and they're going to see you as opinionated. But when somebody needs something done, they're going to look to you. Not the person that drops the ball every time you turn around. When you need something done, you're going to go to the people that are really boisterous and can get it done. That's how it rolls. Leaders lead. Non-leaders really don't like leaders much. Those people that have a problem with the leader, because they're not a leader. You know what I mean? They don't understand it. And I had to sit there and tell her, I said, but you know what's funny though? Is I'm like, this is, I can't even believe I'm going to tell you this, but I'm going to tell you anyway. I said, do you know what's crazy about this relationship that me and you, is that I'm not a leader. I'm a wagon pusher. I said, baby, I'm a good wagon pusher. All you got to do is tell me what to do, and we're going to wagon push this bad boy wherever it's going. I don't usually like to be the one up there like pulling the wagon and say which way we're going. And can I tell you the truth? I was embarrassed when I told her that. Like, I was like, ooh. Because see, as a pastor, aren't you supposed to be like this boisterous leader that has to have it your way? Yeah, but now listen, I've been in plenty of churches, folks, where the pastor micromanages every single aspect of what goes on in the ministry, and everything fails miserably. Can I tell you the one reason why me and Pastor Josh has been able to pastor in a church and have two pastors and preach every other week in a church where you got one guy over here that's straight up Pentecostal and you got one guy over here that's a straight up teacher and a leader? Do you know why that works? Can I be honest with you? It's because me and Pastor Josh are wagon pushers. It's true. I've heard people be like, Josh, you're a pushover. Stand your ground. And I'm like, stand your ground, big boy. I'm just telling the truth. We're good wagon pushers. Let me tell you who's not a wagon pusher. C.J. Walters. I got people that are scared to death to him, and he's not even leading them for something. I'm like, why are you scared of the cat that sings this? I'm just scared of him, man. He scares me to death. And I'm like, you're crazy. Right? So it works. God has made this work. And here's what I want to share with you today. God has given you gifts to make it work. Why do you sit around and you say, I don't have the abilities, I don't have this ability, or I don't have this ability, or I don't have this ability, or I don't have this ability? David would come right off the field of his passion moment and say, hold up. It ain't about what you don't have. It's about what you do have that will make it all work if you'll let him. Think about it. David was never focused on the strengths of the giant. He didn't have time for that. He was focused on what God had given him ability. Number 3, your giants in your life aren't as big as you think they are. The giants that are in your life are not as big as you think they are. Yes, you've made depression be a massive 18-foot giant in your life. Why? Because every giant has a weakness. You may tell you what the Goliath was? Check this out. Anybody that was a giant in them days, raise your hand if you ever watch wrestling and there's a guy in here. Come on, don't be lying, half you, man. Thanks, Randy. Raise your hand if you ever heard about a guy named Andre the Giant. All right, now thank you. Bunch of liars. When I was young, I used to watch his show, the WWF. I used to watch it all the time, and eventually I stopped watching it because I just couldn't handle the stupidity. And I'm just gonna be honest with you, I just crazy stupid. And don't tell me really, because half you women in here are taping them stupid soap operas, right? Y'all, that's exactly what wrestling is. It's just a soap opera. It's like Days of Our Lives. It's a continuous story that goes on and on. So, but anyway, I used to watch that when I was young, and I remember when Hulk Hogan, right? I was one of the Hulkamaniacs. You know, I just was, man. And when he slammed Andre the Giant, that was my David and Goliath moment. But can I share something with you about Andre the Giant? That's very, very, this is so detailed of what the characteristics of Andre the Giant would have had all the way back to Goliath. Do you know that medical history has proved that people that are 7 and 8 foot tall and in that range, of going really, really massively tall, that they have a little bit bigger forehead than most people have. That most people that are would be considered overly tall, always, most of them, 90 something, have double vision. Like, so David's situation here, he would have had sort of like a double vision thing going on. Yes, he was a giant. Yes, he was huge. And some people says, back that up. No problem. It's right here in verse 44. David, listen to this. When David comes out on the field, Goliath says something to him. Goliath says, come to me. Come to me. Guess what else he says to him? Now, you have to understand, remember what I said? David's not getting close enough where he can grab him, right? But listen to what he says. He says, you come to me with sticks? Hold on a second. The only thing he had was a staff that at about that time, you can't tell me somebody walking out on the battlefield is still just staffing it along. Now, he laid that down. So Goliath was looking at David from a distance saying, come to me, right? And he was saying, you're coming at me with sticks? What are you doing? It wasn't a stick. It was a sling that he had. See, he picked up 5 stones and he started heading out to the battle, to the line. And Goliath is making statements that would be very, very, listen to this, evidential. That you could look at it and say, hold on a second, he wasn't carrying sticks. Why is he asking? I can understand why he wanted to get a hold of little David so he could wring his little neck. But he was telling him to come to him so it would be closer battle for him. And here's what I'm pointing out. Sometimes when you're that big, you're not that agile. I know that from experience all my life. You can laugh, it's okay. Like, nobody's signing me up for the 100-yard dash. It ain't happening. It's not happening, folks. It ain't going to happen. Nobody's signing me up for the race of a lifetime if they want to win. No, that's not going to happen. They might sign me up for kickball like they did when I was in the 6th grade. Boy, I killed that ball with my foot. But they didn't sign me up for the races. And I remember that in gym class. But I want to tell you, listen to this. Your giants always have a weakness. Your giants usually have more than one weakness. And all you have to do is understand the weakness like David understood Goliath. David would have ran in circles around Goliath all day long if he'd have had to, firing them stones all day long. David understood that all I got to do is outrun Goliath. He's never going to catch me. He's never going to get his hands on me. I know that I'm agile enough. I know that I can do it. God has gifted him with the characteristics to be able to do it. And I want you to think about it. Why do we look at our giants as being all defeating? Why do we do that? Why do we look at our giants, that giant, because it's in front of me, it's going to be able to take me out? Yes, it's big. But God has gave you some gifts. The 4th thing I want to share with you today is this is not an underdog story. This is not your Rocky IV, Balboa, and the big Russian. This is not what this is about. This story, when I was really reading it this week, God says, Earl, I want you to understand something. Go back and tell the people to go back and read it again. This has never been, in God's eyes, an underdog situation. This has never been big Goliath against little David. And we show it and we tell our children that. But the truth is God never one time looked at David as being an underdog. Never one time. Why? Did you know? This is a little information for you. Did you know that back in biblical times, back when they still fought with the swords and all the armors, do you know who won many of the battles? Do you know who won many of the battles for the armies? Do you know? On both sides, on all sides. It was the rock slingers. It was the ones who would sling rocks just like David did. Just like David did. You know why? It's because they said that a projectile coming out of a sling was listen, as great as a force as a .45 caliber pistol. that if it hit you, it was deadly. Listen to this. And some people would say, yeah, but you sure David would have been able to hit Goliath? Because see, Goliath had all this armor on. Check this out. Do you know the second thing that they said about slingers in the armies back then? Is that they was very proficient at knocking birds out of the air. Flying. I just want you to think about this. He puts the rock in, and he's slinging it. And all of a sudden, he whips that thing, and a bird drops out of the air that's in flight. Do you know you know how hard it is to hit a clay pigeon with a shotgun? When you're like me and you got like double vision, all kind of crazy eyes and stuff. I went shooting with Randy Robinson and EJ one day, and we're shooting. I shoot half the round, and I'm shooting with my right eye, boy. I'm missing almost the whole time, and I said, this ain't working for me. Like, I can't even see. Like, Randy's like, can you even see the things coming out? Like, you're missing. Like, EJ's knocking them out of the air, man. Bow, bow. I'm like, this is stupid. Like, they're shooting them, and then somebody else would shoot them while they're broken. I couldn't even see the broken ones because I was looking through my right eye. But EJ said, Dad, shoot with your left eye and see how it happened. All of a sudden, bam, I hit it. And then I shot the rest of the course with my other eye, my good eye. I think it's my good eye. Sometimes it's my good eye, sometimes it's not. But the truth is I was allowing my weakness and my vision to mess me up. But once I understood my ability to be able to see better out of my left eye, I was able to hit the clay pigeons. I knew my abilities. David knew his abilities, folks. David never had an ounce of worry when he stepped out on the field, and he's saying, dude, the bigger the better, because the bigger they are, the harder they're going to fall. And not only the bigger they are, they can't run, they're not agile. I'm just running all over here like a beast. Come on. Think about this for a second. It's not an underdog situation when the guy has got a .45 loaded caliber pistol in his hand. With a rock. Picked out 5 little special rocks for him. The first one he shot, he planted it right in his forehead. Dropped him. I just want you to think about this for a second. Quit thinking that David was some little bitty tiny warrior when David went and told Saul, hey, I'm not worried about it. I've went and fought bears. I fought lions. Every time they come toward my sheep and he would get one in its mouth, I would go fight it and rip its mouth open. Think about this. This is what David told the king. So Saul is looking at David and he's saying, hold on a second, he's a slinger. He's not afraid of bears and he's not afraid of lions. And he's got more courage than anybody out there laying on my field right now that's in my army. I'll take my chances. I just want you to think about this for a second. The reason why it's not an underdog situation is because Saul thought he had a chance. Think about it. Saul thought he had a chance. If I'm going to have to bow down to the guys that defeat us, I'm not sending a 2-year-old kid out there to fight the battle. Not taking my chances. Saul had to have some confidence in David as a sling thrower. He had to have some confidence in David of his agility, that he was brave, he had courage, that he could stand up against a giant and possibly beat him, or he would have never, as the king, he would have never gave David the right to go down on the field. Unless he had a thought that maybe this guy can drop him. And surely the only thing that's going to drop him would probably be a sling thrower. I'll take my chances with the little boy who just brought lunch. Why do we look at David like that? This weak little boy. Number 5, you have to tell your giant what you're going to do now and after. Oh, I want to read you this real quick. This is awesome. Listen to this. This is what David tells Goliath. This day, the Lord will deliver you in my hand, and I will strike you down and cut you off your head. And I will give I will give the dead bodies of the host of the Philistines this day to the birds of the air and the wild beasts of the earth. And listen to this, that all the earth may know that there is a God in Israel, and that on this assembly may know that the Lord saves not, with the sword and spear, for the battle is the Lord's, and he will give you into my hands. When I listen to something like that, I look at David and I says, David wasn't just focused on today. See, David was focused on tomorrow. And David was focused on the next day, and the next day, and the next day, and the next day. Why do we look at our giants and we're standing right here and our giants are right there and we're saying, okay, depression, you can have rule over my life for the next week. I know that the next 3 days are going to be bad because depression just showed up at the door. I know that my finances are going to be a train wreck because the giant just showed up at the door. I know that my car is going to break down because the giant is out there running around the wheels because everything's rusted apart and it's falling apart. We give our giants a voice in our life. And David says, stop giving the giants a voice in your life. I want you to talk to them and then talk past them. Because see, David didn't just see the giant in front of him. He saw the victory behind him. And we don't see that a lot of times. You have to see your giant. You have to tell your giant what you're going to do now and after. Number 6, you can't fight your giants with someone else's weapons. I love that. One of the characteristics that Saul tried to do is he tried to place his weapons on David, and David eventually said, no, that's not going to work for me. I can't fight my battles with your weapons. Why are Christians today trying to fight battles with someone else's weapons? We're always doing that. Well, my mom was a really good Christian. My mom was this or my mom was that. I get phone calls all the time and people say, Earl, I need you to pray about this situation. I need you to intercede on this situation. Why? Because they're trying to tap in to the pastor's weapons of something that they will not pick up themselves sometimes. Think about it for a second. We try to win battles with other people's weapons when God says, no. I gave you abilities. I gave you things to do. I want you to run with them. I want you to fight battles with the weapons and the accessories that I have put in you and gave you and gifted you with. Quit trying to grab mama's prayers. Quit trying to grab daddy's abilities. Quit trying to grab your brother's this or your brother's that or your sister's this or your sister's that. You know, I got to tell you the truth. When I first became a Christian, I really battled in and out of church. I'm just being honest. Back 20 whatever years ago, I battled bad. I come into church and I was crying and weeping and I need God. I need God. I need Him so bad and I want Him so bad. Like 2 months later, I'm out of church sitting at home watching the Bengals game, chilling out. It's the truth. Then my sister would start calling and I'd be like, I know, Gina, but this or that or this or that. And I've been busy. I've been busy, right? That's lame. I've been busy. Too busy for God is what I'm really saying. But the truth is, I want to be honest with you. Can I tell you the truth today? As a person, back then, I was married and I had kids. I did. And I wasn't in church like I should have been in church. And at that time, I want to tell you, I was using the weapons of my sister. I was using the crutches of my sister. I was using her faith as my standpoint. I was using her obedience to God as saying, I'm going to be in victory because of what she's doing. One day I'm going to get to the point where she's at, and God says, I just want you to get to the point where you're at. I want you to get to the point that I've got for you. I want you to stop comparing yourself to your sister and to your brother-in-law and start living out the things, and I will work on what your problems are. I will work on. And I'm going to tell you, there come a time where I committed to Christ, fully committed to Christ, where it changed my life forever. And all my friends were saying, Earl, there's no way that's going to work. It's no way it's going to work. You're going to bail out, dude. You're too strong into this thing, man, and you're eventually going to burn out. And I told them, I said, fellas, I don't have nothing else to go back to. I have nothing else to go back to. There is no other world for me out there, folks. There is nothing that I've got. There's no friends that I've got outside of the connections that I have through being a Christian. I really have nothing to go back to. So if you don't have nothing to go back to, you're not going back to, right? You can't fight your giants with someone else's weapons. You just can't do it. You got to look and you got to say, God, what have you gave me passion for? You see, because I want to tell you something. Do you know the church needs more than just preachers? The church needs more than just preachers. The church needs more than just worship leaders. The church needs more than just people's ability to sing. Listen to this. The church needs more. The church needs people that know how to handle finances. The church needs people that are good at structuring things. So the church needs people that have a different voice than even the pastor does, to be honest with you. Why? Because if everybody's just going to follow the pastor, then we can all just drink the Kool-Aid today. Right? Why are pastors so offended when people disagree with them? Why? I shouldn't be. Why? Because every single disagreement is an opportunity for growth for our church. Because if somebody else has a different opinion, it might be right. I don't have a mark on everything that's right. Pastor Josh doesn't have a mark on everything that's right. If you have something and you say, I don't think that we should do it that way, it's okay. Why? Because it's a potential for growth, not a potential for an argument. And I wish a lot of pastors, in all honesty, would get that. Say it's okay to have a diverse leadership team that calls you out on things. Why? Because in the end, if you can stay together, in the end, you're going to eventually say, we come to a decision that we can all agree on. Maybe we don't all agree on, but it's the best way to go. Why? Because we had more than just your opinion steering the boat. Why? Because it's important, folks. It's important. This church will be far better, if everybody would use whatever abilities God gave you and gifted you with. Your passion will be a difference maker in your life with your giant. Goliath, I've talked a lot about David. But do you know that Goliath never thought for 1 second he was going to lose that battle? Did you know that? Goliath he stood out there for 40 days screaming at this army. 40 days he's taunting them. 40 days he's telling them that their God's a joke. 40 days he's telling them to send out your best man. Goliath never one time thought that he was going to lose the battle. But guess what? The giants that are in your life do not think they're going to lose their battle either. Do you know who's going to be the deciding factor whether the giants lose the battles? The person that's in the valley fighting them. And if your giants are in the valleys calling you out day and they're calling you out by night, you're going to have to muster up enough passion to say, God has gifted me to defeat this in my life. Do you know why it's a giant in your life? Because it's what can usually get a hold of you. It's what can get a hold of you. You got to have passion. You don't have no passion, you're not going to do any good. It will defeat you. I had one time, and when I was in the school, I don't know, it was the 6th or 7th year in, they brought in one of the leading pastors in Kentucky, mega church, I don't know, 4,000 or 5,000 member church, brought him in. And here's what he said. There was a burning question that everybody was wanting to ask him. You know, this is what he said. He said, they were asking, how do you know who to hire as a mega church pastor? How do you know who to hire? And you know what he said? He said, I very seldom go off appearance. I very seldom go off even abilities. Do you know what I usually go off of as a member of a 4,000 and 5,000 member church still in Kentucky? This is what he said. I go with the one that's got passion. Because passion will take you farther than your abilities will ever get you. Passion will make you do things that's unrealistic. Passion will make you believe you can do something that you know you can't do. Passion will be the thing that will take you up to a king and say, I'll go fight the giant. See, David had more passion than he probably had ability. But he believed in what he could do, but he had passion, and passion will put you in a victorious spot if you let it. You have to have passion for what you're doing. You have to. You have to. I'm going to call the band back up here, and I want to share a story with you about a pastor down in a small community town, much like probably Grant County looked like probably maybe 25 years ago. Maybe even 30 years ago, I don't know. And his pastor he had just got out of the seminary, and he was so excited to go. And he said, I am going to pastor a church. And he looked on, and I don't know how he got the information, but there was a small country church that was looking for a pastor. And he was fresh out of the seminary. And he says, I'm going to go apply for this church. So he went and applied, and they said, we really like you, pastor. We really like what you do, and we want you to be our pastor. And he says, okay. So he goes home and he tells his wife, he says, we're going to go pastor this church. We're moving our family to this small community. And she's like, okay, if that's what God's telling you, that's what God's telling me, honey. I got passion. I know that God's wanting me to do this. And this is crazy, right? So he said, I moved into this small town of 300. 300. And he said, everybody in my family that would come visit, they would get out of the car, man. And he said, this is cool. He would run out of his house and he would say, no, hold on a second. No, don't get out of the car. I need to drive you down to the church. And they would run down to the church. And he says, all I had to do was open up the 2 front doors and you could see the whole church. We didn't have anything else. That was the church. It had some pews and it had a stage, and I was so proud of it, and I had passion for it. He said on his 3rd or 4th Sunday there, he got up and declared, on September 30th, there's going to be 300 people in attendance on that Sunday. Everybody's like, what did he say? Like this church wouldn't even hold 125 people. He said, no, on September 30th, 300 people are going to be in attendance here in this church. So he said he called his little couple leaders that he had together, called the congregation, the little small congregation, and he said, listen to me. We've got like 4 or 5 weeks, and you're going to go out and you're going to tell every single person that you run into that on September 30th, they have to be in this church. And they said, Pastor, if you don't understand, there's only 300 people that live even in our town. He said, that's good. Then you don't have to have that far to go. Just go tell them all, get them all. You know, if there's only 300, then our church just have to reach a few people, and you want to just go tell them. They have to be here. So he said, about a week out, he's walking down the street of this little small town, going to eat lunch. He walked past 4 or 5 people, and they were like, no, we're good. We're going to be there, Pastor. We're going to be there. Like, you don't have to tell me anymore. Your congregation done told me enough. We're going to be there. We promise we'll be there. And he's like, okay, I'll see you there. September 30th. Don't forget. And he shows up and he walks on September 30th. He walks up on the stage and he looks at the worship pastor and he says, how many people are here today? And the worship pastor says, Pastor, 299. He said, what? 299? He said, listen, you're going to play music and I'm going to get them. I'll be right back. Walked straight up out of the church. And he said, all the farmers, man, they were like, yay, go get them, Pastor. Like, we been doing this for 4 weeks. $2.99, this is a miracle in itself. He says, no. We said 300. I said 300. So he walked out the front door while everybody's clapping. They start singing. The doors close right behind him. And he's like, oh, no. Where is number 300 at? And he says he looked across the street. Looked across the street, and there's this gas station that's open right across the street. And he said, that's it. He marched right down the steps, walked to the gas station. And he said he walked into the front doors, and there's 2 people. He said the owner and the attendant was standing there at the gas station. And he said he walked up, and he said, Pastor, his 2 guys were talking to him. Pastor, did you get your 300 today? He says, listen, you ain't gonna believe it. It's $2.99. He said, the only question I got is which one of you wants to be the hero? Which one of you wants to be the hero? Because whoever walks with me back into those doors will forever be known. And on September 30th, you're the hero. You're the one that made 300. And the attendant says, oh, hold on, Pastor. We both want to be the hero. And he says, well, that's good. So the pastor turned around, put the closed sign out, they locked the doors, and he linked arm with both of them, walked straight back across the street, right down through the center aisle, kicked two of his members off the front pew, says, "Get up," set them down, and he said, "I preached my guts out that week." 301 people showed up. He says, he remembers going to bed that night. He's talking to the Lord, and he's like, "Lord, I don't even know how that even happened. It's crazy." He said he felt the Lord telling him, "Do you know what made the difference, though? Your passion. Don't ever forget that in ministry. Your passion for me, your passion to see things done will be what gets things done." Folks, I got to ask you today, where is your passion? Where's your passion at? Is your passion what you're doing right now? "Oh, I'm so happy. I love what I'm doing. My life is great." That is awesome. We should be high-fiving you at the service. Or is your passion something you've lost? You're saying, "Man, I hear you, Pastor. God, I hear you. I wish I was that pastor, but I'm not. I'm defeated most of the time." If I were to tell the truth, if I was to tell the truth, Pastor, it took everything that I could do just to get here today. If I was telling the truth. You've lost your passion. You've lost the one thing that matters most in your life. Is it taking away your salvation? No. There's plenty of Christians that live defeated all their life. Plenty. They'll die and they'll go to heaven, and they're going to be like, "I don't know why it's been all them years. Defeated. I won the victory on my final destination. I should have just listened to last week's sermon again." Some of you have got your passion running right next to you, saying, "I'm right here, man. I know you're scared. I know you're scared to lead that men's group. I know you're scared to lead that small group. I know you're scared to sing that song. I know that you're scared to do this or to do that because it's going to call you out on the very dangerous waters, and you're scared to death to do it. I know that I know that I'm called to be a deacon or I'm called to be an elder, but just it's so scary and responsibilities. It's just too much." Or maybe it's something simple like, "I know I'm called to help on set design, or I'm called to drive a bus on Tuesday or Thursday night." Where is your passion? See, sermons, they don't really do any good if we don't really listen to them. Sermons don't do any good because as soon as this sermon's over, I'm going to take my notes and I'm going to go throw them in the garbage. It don't do any good. We don't walk out of here and say, "Well, I'm going to take what he said about David and Goliath, and I'm going to go get my Bible, and I'm going to read my Bible, and I'm going to read Samuel 17, and I'm going to read this story of David and Goliath and see if I get the same thing the pastor said, and I'm going to find out what is the giants in my life. And then I'm going to start defeating them. I'm going to get some victory. I'm going to get my passion back that I know I once had, and if I can't find it, I'm going to find my passion. I'm going to make a difference for God." And maybe, just maybe, we can declare that on some date, 600 people in a 25,000, 30,000, 40,000. Todd, can you scream out the number? How many people live in Grant County? Roughly 25,000 people. Would it be too much to say that we could get 600 in here in 4 weeks? Would it be too much to say that we could get 600 out of 25,000 people? Guess what? And 70% of them don't go to church. 70% don't go to church. What would that take? What would that take? What would it look like? Like, not being like offensive, but what would it look like? That would look like that the 100 or so people, 140, 150, whatever sitting here, would have to actually go out. You're kidding. Go out and bring people in to a service. That's what we're called to do. That's what we're called to do. We can do told me to declare that, so I'm not going to speak on Earl Breeden. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to declare something God's not told me to do. If God told me to do it, I'd just be go ahead and declare it. God hasn't told me to do what that pastor did. God has told me focus on giants today. Knock them down. Knock them down. Because you'll be of no service to anybody in this community if you're defeated by your giant. Amen. Can everybody stand up? I'm going to say a prayer, and if you need prayer, come on down here. If you need to come to the altar and talk about your giants with God, do that. It was so cool. This week when I was listening to Stephen Furtick, I was telling you, if you ever get a chance, go back and read Isaiah 52, or I'm sorry, Psalms 52. You see, David had a moment where the same giant slayer that was on the field had a moment in his life. David had a moment in his life where he says, all I want to do is fly away. All I want to do is go be alone. I've lost all hope. There is no hope. There is nothing good. There's nothing left. I'm completely feel abandoned. I can't find. This is the same giant slayer feeling that way. That God is nowhere to be seen. So if David can go through it and slay a giant, but yet lose his passion for a moment, we can lose our passion. Today I want you to find it back. Lord, we come before you right now, God.